What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa. Of course, I got my girl, Justine. And if you're just joining us for the first time, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. We invite guests on to share their own story of how music has made an impact, as well as share their own personal mental health journey, because we truly believe we can end the stigma of mental health one conversation at a time. But before we get into our guest, I want to just share. Obviously, if you want to help support our little show, all you have to do is leave a positive rating or review on any app you're listening to this right now and give us a follow. You never know if we're going to have an episode that you like. Really helps support the show, and we just truly appreciate anyone that has already done that. Also, a little disclaimer, I know I may sound a little nasally, a little out of it. I don't know what's been going on. My allergies have been up and down. My sickness, I woke up without a voice again, and I'm doing the best I can to get this out. So I do not sound like this. If I sound like that on however you're listening to this, I don't sound like this. I don't know what's going on, but we're here. We're doing it. Today in the show, I was joined by my longtime Instagram friend, Sara Martin-Kurtz. I was so excited about it because she's someone we followed each other for a very long time, and she's been a supporter of the podcast. And again, it just shows what our podcast is. It's evolved into where in the beginning it was like, okay, just musicians. But then as we saw, like, well, we're all impacted by music and mental health. Why not just join? Because at the end of the day, these aren't interviews, these are conversations. And you can have such a great conversation with anyone that has a story. And that's what's so important about this podcast. And I'm so happy to have met Sara for so long. We talk about how we met through Brand New on Instagram. We dive into how the band Bush brought some comfort to her, how she navigates everything being a parent with a child with a disability. And I think it's such an important conversation to have in terms of mental health. Whether you're a parent or you just know someone that's a parent, it's great to know what to do to help because it can be such an isolating thing. So, and again, we also dive into one of our favorite bands, I Am the Avalanche. So excited someone else appreciates this band. So that was really cool. But absolutely loved meeting Sara. I would hang out with her 10 out of 10. It was so cool to be able to do that. And that's what's so cool about this podcast is meeting so many cool people in the process that either I followed for a long time or just I don't know. I just find I'm like, damn, like I'm gonna go hang out with this person. So that's Sara. But enough of the rambling. I want you to meet Sara. So let's just meet Sara. Here is my conversation with Sara Martin-Kurtz. I know it's such a cliche thing. And what do you want to introduce yourself to the podcast?
My name is Sara Kurtz, and I am 37, and I live and have grown up in Youngstown, Ohio. I am the mom of two boys. I am married to my husband, Cole. I am a medical receptionist at a plasma center, and I'm excited to meet you finally.
I know. I literally was like, I don't remember how we followed each other. Was it Brand New?
It was definitely like, I don't know, like a brand new fan page or something. I made like a couple like lifelong internet friends through the Brand New pages. So,
Oh, I mean, I can relate. I mean, that's how I met G. That's how I met my fiance was our brand new tattoos. Like I posted my brand new tattoo and he, I guess, had posted it, saw my tattoo and was like, messaged me and was like, oh, I love your tattoo. And then like we just got to talking, but I thought like you're in New Jersey. Like I don't have to worry about that. Like whatever. And then next thing I know, like all these years later, here I am in New Jersey.
that's incredible.
And we're engaged, and there's other people, like, there's someone else that's coming on too in a little bit that I met through Brand New too, like, the fan pages, but it's like anytime I can talk to somebody that loves Brand New, because I know it's such a weird topic too,
Uh,
nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, it's like controversial, but like those were the days. Like you and I have like talked about that before, like being a part of a scene. And I always wonder, like, do kids get that today? Because like
Mhm.
we didn't just have like Facebook and TikTok and all of that. And we were like in basements, like sharing music. And then, the first chance we had, we're like, let's meet other people who like the same music. And you did that through like these fan pages.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's like Justine and I, we met at a line for Circus Survive. Like, had we not, like that's half my friends I've met through that same thing and like the internet. I'm like all my like Instagram friends. So That's why I was so excited. I was like, now I can put like a voice to Sarah. Like this is so cool.
Hey.
And kind of talking about brand new, like I know we've talked about it, but how for you has that band made an impact on you?
Oh my God, dude, like, it probably music wise has been the most influential band on me. And I know it is like a hot topic and super
Mhm.
controversial, but like no matter what happened, like with Jesse Lacey or with whatever, like it doesn't take away like my experiences over the last 20 years. And so many of those, like the soundtrack was brand new, I remember like the first time I heard brand new, it was either 2002 or 2003. And I was at a house party at my cousin's, and we like went to sit in a car to like get high or something. And Your Favorite Weapon was playing. And I had never heard anything like before, and I started to get into them. And then when Deja came out, that was it. That was it for me. And Brand New is like one of those bands who I feel like the music matured as I matured. Like I've talked to you before about like struggling with addiction and stuff like,
Mhm.
and when I can listen to Brand New and remember exactly what it was like 15 years ago. And it was then The Devil on God came out, and I had never heard music like that before.
Mhm.
And then, like it took me like a while to get into Daisy, and then I absolutely love that album now. And then Science Fiction, I think, is probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest albums ever made.
Yes.
That is a controversial thing to say around Brand New fans, but I don't know how you could not feel that way. Like I was at the gym today and Same Logic came on, and it was like they were putting words to the way I was feeling at the time. And, I'm in a different place in my life now, and maybe I don't relate the way I did before, but I can still feel those feelings. So I love Brand New.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I love you said that about science fiction because I don't know many fans that like it. I loved it. The minute I heard it, I was like, I love this record so much. My fiance, who we met through Brand New, didn't like Daisy, doesn't like science fiction. And I'm like, dude, like we met through this band. How can you not like science fiction is so good. Like there's so many weird
It's,
callbacks in it too.
I have like this theory that it's like sort of a concept too.
Hmm.
Put the words to what the concept is, it is different. And dude, like when Lit Me Up comes on,
Oh my God.
like, oh my God, dude.
I remember when that came out because it was a secret or what, and it just came out and they said that like, hey, this is out. My friends are texting me. I'm like driving and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, just send it to me. And somebody sent it. I think someone too, Justine, like, I don't know, from the circuit boards or something. Somebody sent this to
It
me.
could be.
And they literally were like, I put it on however I could on my phone and lit me up. I was like, oh my God, like that's it. I'm hooked on this. This is so good. And I'm so sad I didn't see them on their like last tour because like they didn't come around here. And I'm
Yeah,
kicking myself because I'll probably never see them again. And I know some people
yeah,
like it that way. Me, like, I feel like as much as people love to hate on brand new, I'm that person that have said like if they announce a tour, people are
yeah.
crazy if they don't think or a show that would sell out in seconds. It would still
Oh,
sell out
yeah.
in seconds, 100%.
They are one of the best I've ever seen live too. And the
Hmm.
time I saw them, Science Fiction wasn't out yet, but they played a couple of the songs, and everyone was like, what is this? It was dope, dude. Yeah, I love them.
Oh,
I know I'm not, supposed to say that.
I know. So, you're safe here. Like
A
I tell people all the
girl,
time.
I always will believe women, but like I said, like it
Hmm.
take away from my experience,
Hmm.
like those
Yeah.
20 my life. So I love
That's
Yeah.
them.
how I explain it as well. Because I
Hmm.
have a brand new tattoo as well. And I'm like, I don't have any regrets. Because some people regret their brand new tattoos. And I'm like,
Hmm.
no, like
Yeah,
it doesn't take away from what you felt and what you dealt with. Even though, like, yeah, Jesse Lacey, horrible. Took away from what the music did for us,
right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's an entirely huge group of people that literally at some point were like, this is the only thing I understand right now. And I relate to that so much.
No, I'm the same way, and that's what Justine when we talked about Brand New, I was really nervous about it. But then, Justine, you were so calm with me, and you're like, "It's okay," because, like, she explained it so well, and I'm like, "Bands, it's okay if you like their music. It's okay, like, they're on my Spotify playlist. I just posted a reel today, and I'm sure someone's gonna be there's always someone.
Yeah, there's always
I
gonna be.
But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's like I said, like, that music, I wouldn't have my life I have now without Brand New, and we wouldn't even be here either, so, like, it's a win-win. It's a good thing.
So we know that you've listened to the podcast before, so you probably know what question's coming. But what are some of the first memories of falling in love with music?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. So I grew up with I don't know if you guys know what like a beer garage dad is, but like,
I don't know.
my
Is it like
dad,
drinking beers in the garage all the time?
yeah,
So, yeah.
there was always like Neil Young, Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin that was always going on in the background. So I think that my dad like really set the tone for like what I was going to look for musically later on in life. And I went through, I remember like the first person who I ever listened to where I was like, I was the one choosing it was Mariah Carey. And I am like to this day just a huge Mariah Carey fangirl. It doesn't
Yeah.
get better, you know. Um, but when I think about like the person I am now and how my music taste changed to like create this person I am now, I it was like Blink 182 coming out. It was like the first time I saw the video for Dig by Mudvayne. I
Mhm.
never heard music like that before. My mom was Jehovah's Witness, so like to me, metal music was like the devil, and I was like obsessed. Um, Good Charlotte's first album. That
Mhm.
that like set the tone, and it was like this time where I was trying to like figure out like who am I, what kind of people am I going to hang out with, how am I going to dress, like like getting ready to go into high school or whatever. And then me and my best friend at the time, Eva, it was like 2001, and we were with this man who was older than us and should probably be in prison, but he took us to see Thursday and From Autumn to Ashes.
Oh, man.
And I had no idea who these bands were walking into there. And it changed like everything for me. And that's when I started to like get introduced to that scene. And, at that same time, I was like getting really into like Third Eye Blind and knew that this is like where I belonged. And it's all of those albums are still on repeat. Like I still listen to Blink 182 all of the time. I still will listen to that Mudvayne album.
Mhm.
Thursday is like constant rotation. So yeah, I think that my dad kind of like veered me in the right direction, and I knew I liked like rock and roll, and it was just like finding my little outlet.
Yeah, I love like, you love Mariah Carey because I put on I think it was Fantasy the other day, and I was like, "Gee, like, who is this? Like, just guess who this is." He's like, "I don't know who that is." I'm like, "How do you not know Mariah Carey?" Like, I'm dying. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like playing this. He's like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Gee, like her signature, like she's everything." As much as I'm like alternative through and through, I love Mariah Carey. I am a
Mhm.
Mariah Carey stan. Who she is, what she's about. She calls
Yes.
everybody out too, like famous
Mhm.
wise. I love it. Like I just adore her. And like Thursday, obviously, like that's a huge thing for me too. Like I get to see them soon, and I'm so excited. It's gonna be so intimate, and they're just I think they've changed so many of us, like, through their music, getting us into the scene, and man, From Autumn to Ashes, that's a throwback. That is a
It
throwback right there.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like it was heavy, and I was angry, and it
Mhm.
like fit so well. And I think with Thursday, it was like this exposure to like things don't have to be perfect to be,
Mhm.
because like his voice is not perfect. They are
No.
not musicians in the world, but you put it together and it is like absolutely perfect. And they actually played like I think they got like fooled into playing this like really small venue here because I was like, what is happening? And I mean, all these people that I grew up with. Like here we are, late 30s, like we are going to see Thursday. It's like, 6 degrees out, let's go. And it's incredible.
Oh, no, I that's why I can't wait for that venue here. It's like 250 capacity room. It's where I saw Anthony Green in December, and I'm like, how can they play there? Like, how is that going to be safe? It's going to be amazing, but I cannot imagine the chaos. And I'm like, my 38-year-old, but like, I want to say I'll be in the crowd, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll find out. Like, I'll see. But another band that we share, and I'm so happy, is I Am the Avalanche, and just Vinnie
Yeah.
Caruana in general, because the movie life. And I
Yes.
know I love that because everybody else, like they're literally playing that 20-year tour, and nobody I know over here wants to go. They don't have no idea who I Am the Avalanche is, which is such a crime. But I got to know like whether it's a favorite record or like what is it about. You can even say Vinny in general, but I Am the Avalanche. Like, what about that band for you?
I remember like hearing the self-titled album, and I remember like I think it was Green Eyes came on, and it's just one of those instances where it's like it's in the same realm of what I'm listening to, but I've never heard anything like a lot like brand new, where it's like this is different. And it was one of those times that it was like a really dark time in my life. And I was just messed up, and it was like this. The thing I like about that, like I Am the Avalanche to me is like punk. Like that is what it is. It is like nasty and dirty and gritty and also melodic and beautiful. And that's like really how my life felt at the time. And there's just some songs on there, like Symphony is just like
Hmm.
incredible. And I took a beating. Like the older I get, the more I listen to it, it changes for me.
Yes.
And I'm like, I took a beating,
Yes, 100%. I love that song for that same reason. Every time, like when I was going through a lot of shit last year with like the podcast and just life, I took a beating. I Am the Avalanche was the band I played, and that song specifically, because like you said, like you're literally like you took a beating. Maybe it's different than what they're saying, but like it is so good.
Increased my threshold for pain, and I'm like, that is growing up. That is it. Like look at what we can handle now. It is one of those bands that if I bring it up, no one knows who I'm
Mhm.
talking, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, this is just for me, that, and now for you.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, why can't I think of that record that it's white? I'm like trying to look it up. And I love this record by I Am the Avalanche. It's the white.
um, like Brooklyn on it.
Yeah.
The name of it either.
Oh God, hang on. I'll edit this out. I don't care. Or maybe people just know that I don't know. It's Ambulance United. Okay.
Okay.
That record, when I was going through such a hard time with a breakup, like hearing things like holy fuck or anything of that, just or that one, maybe it's Gravedigger's Argument. No, now I'm just gonna go to the whole record because it's just so good. But yeah, it is because it has Anthony Ranieri of Bayside on it. The Gravedigger's Argument, that one, like it just literally. That's why I know, Justine, when we were talking about the movie Life, you're like, "Oh, it really didn't hit." But I'm telling you, those gritty, like, vocals of Vinny, it's like you said it perfectly, like, it's punk. It's just I can't wait for that show because, like, I'm going alone. I don't care. Like, I literally have seen them alone so many times because they're just so good, and I think they're just still so underrated even though they're pushing on, like, 20 years, which is crazy to think about.
He does this thing where he mixes like masculine and feminine so well. He's like getting it out. He's saying what he needs to say. It is poetic, but it's angry. And I love that, where it's not like, oh, I'm a man's man, like
Mhm.
everybody's heart has been broke. Everybody's parents disappointed them. Everybody hates their job, like,
Yeah.
and we can all like feel these things at the same time. And I think that Vinny like does that.
I've met him so many times, and he is the nicest person ever. When I explained to him what that Avalanche United record did for me at the really bad time in my life, he didn't even say a word. He just gave me a hug. Like
Yeah.
he is just so nice. And when I asked him about the podcast like years ago, when I was like, oh, I'm going to do the podcast, I never did it. Like I just did it online, like music magazine or whatever. He was so down even then. Like he is just such a nice person and I love him so much. And I just love him and anything. So if anyone's listening, just go listen to I'm the Avalanche, give them some justice.
To like Bayside, and you know, you're gonna find something you like with them. But I don't know why they didn't get bigger. They should have.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm like, they should have, and they've toured with bands, but that's like even like Bayside, our episode coming out tomorrow, it's like the same thing we've said about Bayside. They're another band that I feel they're not huge as they should be. Like
Yeah,
they're known, but we don't know why. So I don't know.
totally.
People have to get into it, and
Yeah,
I know. Sorry, Justine. I had to brave about I Am the Avalanche. I know. I finally had somebody on here that understands
No,
Vinnie
it's fine.
Caruana. But I'll let you go ahead. You could get into the next one.
Okay, so we know you have a strong connection with the band Bush. What about that band has had an impact on you during difficult times?
I got introduced to Bush in like, I don't know, like 2000 or 2001. I was at a sleepover with a group of like 4 or 5 girls, and we watched the movie Fear with Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
my friend Cassie and I became obsessed with Mark Wahlberg and Bush. And
Same.
yeah, I mean, so like long story short, Cassie and I, we were lifetime friends. We ended up, when I got pregnant with my oldest son, I ended up moving across the street from her. She had 2 little boys. We like kind of reconnected in adulthood. And on January 1st of 2021, I was like 6 months pregnant with Henry. It was actually my oldest son, Vincent's birthday. And my husband woke me up and he said something happened at Cassie's house. So I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, there's fire trucks up and down the road. So I'm like, you know, big and fat and pregnant. It's January, and I like throw in some boots and a coat, and I go outside and her house is just gone. And our friend Casey, this is like difficult to talk about. Our friend Casey came out and she was just shaking her head. And I was like, all of them. And she was like, Cassie and Otto. So Cassie and her 6-year-old son Otto died in a house fire that night. And I have used Bush. I have like leaned on Bush so heavily to get through that. It was that probably affected me more deeply than anything that's ever happened in my life. And you know, for months I would just have, you know, like Bush on repeat, and it was sad, and I would cry, and I can't drive down the street because her house is gone. And but now, you know, now it's like brought me to this like great place of peace, and like I feel really really close to my friend when I'm listening to Bush. And not only that, it is timeless and it is classic. Okay, like those songs are art. They are pure art. Like I can listen to 16 Stone top to bottom without skipping a song. um it is like actual rock and roll. Not to mention, like he's like one of the hottest people who's ever lived, and
Oh
that,
my God. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah. But I mean, this real coming of age band to me, you know, like I'm, you know, getting into boys, and like it's very sexual. And now I have this connection with my friend who's no longer here because of Bush, you know. Like I mean, nobody loved them more than Cassie. So I absolutely love listening to Bush. I like drive my husband nuts with it.
Oh, I thank you for sharing that, because I know it's such a difficult thing, and I know there's even songs I like. I've never lost anyone that was connected with musically, but like even dating someone, whatever it is, whether you lose someone the way you did, which I think is the most tragic way to, but it's like you have that connection and you can feel them. And I mean, even me, like my grandpa loved, oh gosh, I can't think of that song. I don't know who sings it, but it's like Blinded by the Light.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
but
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
grandfather loved that song. Like he loved that song. So whenever it comes on, like when I would listen to the radio, it's like, oh, my grandpa's here. Because I sadly lost him too soon and to his own mental health. And literally, it's like it's that weird connection, but it's so good to have that because
It's
it just is,
music,
and that's oh,
it's music like crosses the threshold, you know. Like there are things I did not have words when I lost Cassie to like describe what that felt like. and music really like made all of the connections for me. And it's been like that with every tragic or happy instance in my life. It's I'll be like eternally grateful for Bush though. I mean, it is like, and anyone who grew up with us, they
Mm-hmm.
is like the first person we think of. And it's good. It's good.
Oh my God. I love Bush so much where I literally, admittedly, like when we were doing the 90s episodes, I'm like, Gavin Rossdale, like Bush. G has no idea. Like, he had no idea who Gavin Rossdale was. I was like, how do you not know? Like, G or like Trent Reznor, like all these things, because like he likes music, but it's just is like in a different, very different capacity. But it's just like, I don't know how I could not, because I had the same thing with the movie Fear. It was the same way. I was obsessed with Mark Wahlberg in that movie. And like, even watching that movie, like, you shouldn't be because how he is. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was in love with Mark Wahlberg. That's how, like, I got into Bush too, and then from there, like, Gavin Rossdale was just, like, the babe of all babes and still is, so even at, like, 50 or whatever he is now, so it's oh my god, I love Bush so much, and I know they're coming here on some tour, so I'm like, I think I have to just go, and but again, no one it would be another one I'd have to go alone, but I don't care. These days, like
That's a good show that you can go and have a seat at, you know, like you can
right.
just like
Mhm.
buy.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%, and I mean, even talking about, like, even going through that, and obviously, our podcast is mental health, which we'll get into a little bit, but for you, there's still such a stigma with mental health. How important do you think it is to end the stigma of mental health? And what do you think I mean, I know accessibility is a big thing, but what do you think we can do, whether it's a friend or family member, to help end the stigma of mental health?
I think like, and I think that our generation is doing it. I think that we came from these generations of people that were like, we don't talk about that. We don't air our family's dirty laundry. You got to suck it up, be a man, you know.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is like a generation of mothers and fathers now that are kind of working against that. But when it comes to, I am like one for just like, we got to talk about it, you
Mhm.
know, like, so like I'm in the recovery community, and one of the biggest things I see that is killing people is people are afraid to just talk. Specifically, like, I see you struggling. I know that you're messing up. Or, you know, and it could be like that with anything like anxiety, depression. Like, I see you struggling. It's just we're so afraid to do that. We're like afraid that we're going to like hurt someone's feelings. But it's so hard when you're the person who is struggling to be like, hey, I'm drowning, I need help.
Mhm.
um, I can like think back to being like a new mom with my oldest son, and I didn't know at the time that I had like postpartum anxiety. And you know, I had just gotten clean the year before, and I didn't really know how to do this, and I did not know how to say like, hey guys, I need help, you know. So it was the people who would come to my house, and without asking me, they would just like do my dishes, or they'd be like, why don't you go take a shower? And I never would have asked them to do that, and it like kept me together. I just like, the stigma is the problem. One of the things I do, and I've just been noticing recently that I do it, is I say out loud what I'm feeling. And like, I think that sometimes people like think I'm telling them, but really I'm telling me. So
Mhm.
like, I'll be like, man, I'm anxious. And like, I'm not telling my husband that. I'm like letting myself know, like, that's what I'm feeling. And I do it with everything. I am really happy right now. And like, I am letting me know that like, this is what this is. And accessibility, I mean, I don't know, I shouldn't say this, but like, we have a male problem when it comes to mental health. And I feel like I can say that because I'm raising two boys.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
But when we look at suicide rates, domestic violence rates, overdose rates, what are we seeing? We're seeing men, you know, 18 to 35. And why, like, why is that? Why are we raising our sons to not be able to come say like, hey mom, or hey girlfriend, or hey wife, or hey teacher, or hey friend, like, I am struggling, I don't know how to get through this. Like, I can remember, you know, I just am so turned off by this thing that starts in infancy where it's like, don't cry. You gotta be a little soldier, like only
Mhm.
girls cry. And we don't do that here. Like my kids are having a meltdown and it's like, buddy, do you need a hug? Because like that's what they need, you know? And I think that this whole like we have to just be like strong and soldier on is so detrimental. Like it is so detrimental. It is not working. It's just not working. And my husband and I, because he's in recovery too, like we talk a lot about, you know, like the fentanyl epidemic and overdose rates. And I mean, we're seeing more deaths than the rest of the world combined in a year. It is an America problem. Like this is social and cultural and community. And I don't know what we're gonna do, but like it has to get done soon. It's scary. It's scary. And I just wish everybody could just be like, I'm not okay, or I see that you're not okay, you know?
Oh, like everything you just said, like I think about even G's accident he went through, or how many people, like those people that just showed up or sent food to us, or hey, but it's like you can how many people I wish would have came up to me and like, "Hey, are you good?" And then when I would say, "Yeah, I'm fine," no. And it's hard like for people to know, but no, no, I was not fine. I was literally drowning. I was at the worst, but like trying to take care of him and trying to do that. And I think so many people just think people are good and they don't check on them. And it's
Yeah,
like and then they wonder why, like, even him, like, when you're talking about men's mental health, that's the biggest struggle we have because he's going through all these new experiences with his depression diagnosis, his anxiety all his diagnosis since his accident. He literally has gone through it, and, like, none of the dudes around him like, sorry if they're listening, I doubt it, but, like, none of the dudes around him have stepped up and, like, literally been there, and it's like, I wish they would be like, "Hey, you good?" Instead of like, "Oh, why are you sleeping all the time? Why are you doing that?" I wish they would have, like, still, even now, 4 years later, "Hey, he still needs you, like, step up." But again, it's like you said, like, when you're younger, you're told to, like, keep it in, and I think that I'm thankful now at least he's able to, like, tell me, like you were saying, like, "Oh, I'm anxious." Like, he'll tell me, like, "Hey, I'm having like, this is how I'm feeling." And he's telling himself, but also telling me so then I know, "Hey, you know what? Like, alright, you're cool." Like, if you snap or if you do anything, but I know, Justine, you've said it before too, and you've posted it, where people are, like, okay with mental health until you're showing those symptoms of it.
Mhm.
Like, whether it's depression or anxiety or anything, like, they're okay with you. Mental health matters until, like, you are being anxious or you are depressed or you just anything. And then, people that has something like bipolar, a lot of people don't wanna talk about bipolar. They'll talk about anxiety and depression, but, like, you mentioned bipolar, it's like, "No, that's too much for me."
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah, it's scary. My mom has borderline personality disorder, totally untreated.
Mhm.
Everyone around us has known that since I was a little kid, and no one has ever stepped in, you know?
Mhm.
And now as an adult, I try and imagine being around that and not being like, hey, like we have to get you some help. Imagine doing that. And like I've had to really set boundaries with my mother, especially since having kids. I went through like a 2 year period of like being like, you can't be in our life. Like they cannot be exposed to the things that I was exposed to. Those things are hard. It is hard to tell your mother that she can't see her grandkids. It was hard on me. It was hard on her mother. They have to be done though, because it's just trickling down and down and down. And this is like every family story, you know, and it's
Mhm.
just they come from this generation of like, you just got to suck it up and we're not going to talk
Mhm.
about what's going on over there. And my husband has mentioned before, like what it's like watching me with my friends and how we hug all the time. And he is a man, like they don't have that. And I'm like, I feel so bad for him when he says that to me. Like I love
Yeah.
hugging my friends and telling my friends I love you. Like I want you to know I love you. So yeah, I don't know. I pray that things get better as my kids get older because it is scary.
Yeah, and even the hug thing, like you just brought up, like I think about when I moved here and experiencing G's family, Even I can't think of the last time, like, I've known his dad. I love his dad with all my heart. He's one of the best people in my life, and I'm so lucky to have him as, like, a future father-in-law, but they don't hug. I don't think I've ever seen them in the 7 years I've lived here hug, like,
But
ever.
It's so weird.
And it's weird,
That's
right?
so
And I'm
weird to
not
me.
dogging, but right, it's a man thing, but, right, some
Yeah.
people and to some people, like, I'm a hugger, like, if I meet somebody, I'm like, "Let me give you a hug," but never. So, I don't know, I don't know,
Yeah,
you just said so many great things I think people need to hear for sure, and especially the men, so
probably 150 times a day. I love them. And it's because I remember reading something that said the way you talk to your kids will become their inner voice. And that made so
Mhm.
much sense in my life with my
Yeah.
mom and so I mean, they're probably like annoyed with me, but it is like hugging. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm so glad you're in my family. I'm so happy to be your mother. I want them to grow up and think like I am a special person. I am a good
Yeah.
person. Like, yeah.
Oh,
I just love
100%.
oh my god.
Yeah.
I
Like,
love that.
I've mentioned a lot to Lisa even that I have noticed a lot with our generation that there has been a lot of millennials that have cut off ties with their parents because of these reasons. And yeah, it's wild to me. But
Mhm.
we're definitely the generational curse breakers. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Thank God.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like we kind of all decided it ends with us. We're gonna try to be different when it comes to parenting. And like you said, I'm hoping and praying as somebody that's been in childcare for a decade that with this next, you know, string of kids and everything, that it vastly changes.
Yeah, I think it's going to.
I
I think
think
so
so
too.
too. I think
Yeah.
so too. I'm kinda going into that in little ones. I know Justine,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you the reins.
So a big reason I know that Lisa wanted you on, as well as me, is to be able to, as much as you're willing to talk about your little one and being a parent of a child with a disability and how that impacts you as a parent and your mental health. Can you tell everybody about SCN2A? I might be saying
Saying
it
No,
it
wrong,
right.
but
you
so anybody unfamiliar with your story.
my son has a genetic mutation. My son's name is Henry, and he'll be 3 next month. He has a genetic mutation, and it's ultra rare. So right now, there's about 260 people in the world that have this diagnosed mutation. So I actually wrote this down because I didn't want to mess it up. But so SDN2A encodes instructions to make a protein in the brain called a sodium channel. And the sodium channel plays a key role in the cell's ability to generate and transmit electrical signals. And pathogenic variants, which is what Henry has, they kind of like stop the flow of the sodium into the brain. So SCN2A is linked to epilepsy, infantile spasms, autism, intellectual disability, movement disorders. And, you know, our experience with Henry had a developmental regression at 8.5 months old, so, which is very young. So before that, he was waving, clapping, babbling, eating anything we would give him, and one day it stopped. And a couple weeks went by, and I had mentioned to my husband, like, have you heard Henry babble? And he's like, no. And I immediately make a doctor's appointment. And that was January of 2022. So it's just been over 2 years. It's been a 2-year fight to get a diagnosis. Immediately I was told, let's just wait and see. That
Mhm.
did right. So I make another appointment, and I'm being told things like, you need to get off of Google.
Mhm.
He's just developing a new skill, so he stops doing this, and nothing felt right. So I make another appointment. My husband goes with me, and we are just like, we want a referral to speech therapy.
Mhm.
And speech therapy turned into occupational therapy, turned into early intervention, turned into developmental pediatricians, turned into neurology, turned into us getting to see a geneticist. And the geneticist and the neurologist were the first two people that like actually listened to us. And at this point, everybody was looking at this like it was just autism, not just autism, but like Henry's diagnosis would be autism. But
Yeah.
Henry while Henry is autistic and he does have an autism diagnosis, it just didn't fit and it didn't feel completely right. So we did 2 rounds of genetic testing, and about 6 weeks ago, we got, the word back that he did have this genetic mutation, and it has been a struggle. The first year I call like the blackout year. We didn't know what was going on. It felt like our life was over. It has been incredibly lonely. It has been incredibly isolating. We have been gaslit by the medical community. And thank God we never gave up. Thank God we gave up. And the next year was, it's hard. Everybody's lives paused. We do so much therapy with Henry that my oldest son, he's not getting to do sports and stuff like that because my husband and I both work. And it's like, well, how are we going to do this, this, and this? And we didn't really see any progress with Henry for a long time. The last 6 months, though, this has been like the golden era. He is progressing so much. He's starting to sign. He's starting to use an AAC communication device. He is starting to do more typical play with toys. He's stacking blocks, throwing balls. He's wanting to, go into the playground instead of just like, Henry likes to tap things together. So typically like when we're somewhere, that's what he's doing. But recently he's like going up, going down the slides. I think having the diagnosis has been a relief. It has been a relief. I felt like a crazy person for 2 years. Like, am I doing too much? Am I ruining my family's life? Like, why? I would go to bed at 9 and read medical journals till 1 a.m., just like trying to figure this out. So the diagnosis has been a relief. Tough because we're not really going to meet anyone who's going through this same thing. We're talking about like an international community of less than 300 people. So there is like a good online community going though that I'm part of. And, my kids are like, I love them. They're absolutely the best thing that has ever happened to me. I do feel like, and I feel like I would have been embarrassed to say this before, but now I'm like proud to say it. Like my kids are my purpose in life. They have turned me into the absolute best version of myself. So yeah, it's been a struggle, but I am so thankful that Cole and I get to be Henry's parents. I always think like, what if it was someone else and they didn't know what he needed? So but it got to be us.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that I think, especially in working in the childcare field too, that they think
Yeah.
they may see something or something may be off, whatever it is, and maybe they're in that denial and they don't want to go to do it because it is a lot. Like you said, like the
Yeah.
medical, like I've been with other kids that I've watched where I'm like, hey, like this, I don't know. Like again, there's milestones and like to each their own with
Yeah.
those too, but you've got
We
to be
just talked about
careful.
that even.
We talked about that
We
yesterday a little
talked
bit,
about
like
that.
just
Yeah.
and how milestones, so many people are focused on them, right? And they're a good tool, but
Yeah.
it just is like you have to be very careful and trust your gut and know that. And thankfully you did because there's a lot of people that
Yeah.
medical, I know even people in my own family that are like with the medical, oh, they're fine. Oh, the doctor says they're fine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I think you should get a second opinion and like not
exactly.
coming across like I know it all, but just like, hey,
Yeah.
that's so it's good you're on with the judgment and how good he's doing now. Like that's so
I think
amazing.
too that a lot of people like you said, like they trust doctors to the point that like they
Yeah.
never question anything. But that's also a problem because there's a lot of there is a lot of medical gaslighting that happens to a lot of people. I've dealt with it all my life. I had kind of a similar experience with my mom, even kept pushing to figure out medically things that were wrong. I got diagnosed with autism 2 years ago, but she told me she always knew and she kept fighting for it. And doctors were starting to try to say that she was like Munchausen by
Yeah.
proxy, which is ridiculous. Like I had like teachers and public see me go into seizures. They were trying to say that my mom was making that up as well, when even though there was witnesses. And she kept pushing. After a while, especially with the autism, like she gave up because she was like, nobody's believing me.
Yeah.
Until high school, she told me that finally a doctor brought it up to her, that our physician did. And then she was like, oh my God, like nobody's ever listened to me. But then that doctor left, so we didn't keep pursuing it. And she didn't bring it up to me. Well, she kind of tried to tell me, but I was a rebellious teen at the time and I was angry. So when she said that to me, I was like, how dare you? Like, I know that I'm different, but like, don't
Yeah.
accuse me of being like that, you know? But which I felt horrible once I got diagnosed about that, because I thought about that. But yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes you're gonna get that resistance from like doctors, and you just gotta push through it and be like, no, something's going on here, and you have to trust your gut, and you have to keep talking until you figure out what works. And I'm happy and proud to hear that you guys kept pushing until you got it, because
Thank
that
you.
happens so much.
Yeah, I created my kids inside of my womb. I breastfed both of my kids for 2 years. Like, we are so just intertwined with each other that for anyone, and the same with your mom, for anyone to treat you like you don't know, what is going on. It's really frustrating. Like, Henry will eventually develop epilepsy. And like, imagine if nobody would have listened to us, and then we wouldn't know that that was what was coming down the road.
Yeah.
And just the thing is, like, in Henry's instance, like, we're dealing with something that none of his doctors have ever dealt with. How would they know? Who were
Yeah.
they to tell me no? We got so good at firing doctors and just, like, hiring a new. The second you didn't say what I wanted to hear, which is like, let's do more tests.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, we're gonna move on to like a new doctor then. And
Yeah.
and having a diagnosis is so important. It is so important. It's
Absolutely.
important. And to not have to like question yourself, like, and I'm glad that your mom and you got those answers too.
Yeah, like it's one of those things I just don't understand when people, like, I get it because you're like, well, they're a professional. So like I'm probably like, then you gaslight yourself and you're like, it's probably nothing. And I've had to deal with that even with myself, with conditions in adulthood of pushing and pushing, because like, and I don't know answer, or like, well, you're probably fine. Like, that's not good enough. If
Yeah.
you're getting answers like that, that means you need to keep pushing. Like, you need an answer. And like, I've had to go through that. And I just got diagnosed with POTS syndrome after pushing and pushing and pushing, because I knew fibromyalgia was not the only thing going on with my body.
Yeah.
And sometimes like that's the answer you need. Like, if it's a, I don't know, the answer you need in that time is, we're going to keep testing things. Like, that's what you should be hearing. You should just be keep testing any weird thing possible, because it could be something like your son's case where it is something super rare. Like, you don't know until you keep trying and trying to figure it out. And I don't think people understand that you need to sometimes push them further if they're giving you that kind of answer.
Yeah.
100%. Like, even me, not on the autism level, but even like my
Yeah.
PCOS, I had to fight so hard to be like, I'm not crazy. I know this is not normal. And it would always just be, oh, you need to lose weight. Lose
Yeah.
weight. No. And finally, I found somebody that listened and, oh, yeah, yeah, you have PCOS. Oh, okay. So now that's like 10 years of my life. It's like, so I can't
That's
imagine on your level.
unacceptable too. Like,
Yeah.
one of the things I had to get through my head was the doctor works for me. And
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
authoritarian thing that goes on where you like feel like they are the authority in the room. They work for you. So
Mhm.
not working, find someone else to work for you.
Exactly.
Oh, 100%. And
Uh,
I know, Justine, you came up last
I do.
night. You were like, "Oh, I have another question, Lisa." Like, go ahead. Like,
I have,
go.
so I wanted to bring up this conversation because I haven't been able to have like a platform to talk about this with somebody, and I feel like maybe we could have a good conversation about it. So I don't know if you have managed to see, there's a lot of discourse in the autism community when it comes to autism parents, usually moms, and autistic adults. There's a lot of discourse that happens online. And from what I can see, from what I can tell, there are like a couple things happening. On the autism side, what I'm seeing is a lot of what's called ASPE supremacy, which is when somebody who is level 1 autism, that is low support needs, tends to think they're separate from the rest of the spectrum. So they don't want to really be connected to somebody that is nonverbal or dealing with more intellectual disabilities. And so they're like, kind of feel like they're more superior and kind of separating themselves. And it's a huge issue in the adult autism community. And then you also have the other autistics that I see in these scenarios that are dealing with their own trauma and they're kind of taking it out on other people. And then sometimes I'll see on the parent side, like some of the autism moms online in the community, I'll see where they're kind of like pageant moms, where they're kind of using and exploiting their child
Yeah.
and their autism for like views or
Yeah.
just like showing their kids melting down and
Yeah.
all that. So there's a lot of discourse. So I wanted to ask is, have you experienced any of these issues when you're in any kind of autism community? And also, what would you like to see from actual autistic adults to help support you?
So there's so many things I there are on the parent side for
Yeah.
sure. This you find a page and it's like my life with my autistic child. And it first of all, we should not be using our kids for like monetary reasons or
Yes.
and then the thing that like links into that is we are desperate. I am desperate. My nonverbal, he eats 5 foods. He like I am his entire life. So what you'll see is these people selling things with okay, so this has an autism label on it. It hasn't been checked by the at all, but my kid started talking. And it's only $49.99 a month.
Yes.
And it's just really feeding off like the desperation. And there's this thing, and this is probably like controversial, but this like, well, autism is a superpower. My son can't talk. My son doesn't.
Justine was bringing that up. Justine was
I
like,
was bringing that up to her.
Yeah.
He will likely never be independent. This is not a superpower. Like I don't think you know about the drama with the ABA, which is well, then you have parents that's ever happened to my child. It is difficult. It is difficult for someone like me because one of the first things that was recommended for Henry was ABA. And in my immediately, I'm like, well, all these people are saying they're traumatized by it. And I do not feel like I do like in real life have a community of parents with kids with disabilities. And I can lean on those people. But when it comes to online, it is a pageant. It is a pageant. My child is more disabled than yours. My child started talking sooner than yours. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. And it is like really, really heartbreaking, like to make money off of your kids. And when it comes to Henry, I want to do what makes Henry happy. So Henry has seen the same speech therapist for 2 years. We've seen almost no progress, but he loves going there. So we keep going there. Henry's going to start preschool. I am hesitant to do it, but I know he wants to do it because when we take him to his brother's school, he is just like a pig in shit. And that is basically why I'm going to parent my autistic child, because it is a pageant online. And, I'm not willing to buy the thing that's going to remove the metals from his system and the fish oil and listen to the HQ sound waves. Then like I'm a shitty mom because I just
because they do that too, where they'll feed off trying to make you feel like a horrible person if you're not like looking into things. Same with the ABA, because doctors immediately go to that. But as I have looked and seen, and just for my own knowledge, because I obviously like diagnosed, I didn't go through any of that. But from what I can see is every once in a while you'll have somebody that is like, no, I did okay doing ABA. And it did help me learn some things. But then you have others that are completely traumatized. So from what I can tell is, especially with ABA, is a lot of times the people that are doing it aren't trained thoroughly. That's another big problem. So you have people that like aren't really in it and they're not trained properly. Or sometimes you'll find a really great therapist from ABA that is wonderful and actually cares and is actually helpful. So basically, my big suggestion anytime I see anybody not sure, I'm like, just research.
Yeah.
If you feel like it seems something that will benefit your child, go for it. If you think it's going to be more harmful, don't do it, because there are other therapies, even though that's always the main one that they'll throw out there.
Medical community's recommendation. One of my, I've had this like evolution of thoughts and ideas with autism since I have an autistic child, and it is, my son is different, so why do we have to treat him the same? And because
Yes.
times it's like, okay, well, we have to get him saying words. Henry, most of the kids who have SCN2A never verbally speak. So we're going to, and we're going to work with the AAC machine. Why does Henry have to play typically with toys? Why are we going to sit him there and force him? If it's not going to do that thing in his brain that makes the other kids happy when they're playing with toys, Henry is happy to sit and tap.
Yeah.
Henry is different. Why does he have to be the same? Now, there are things like he has to learn how to like act appropriately in public and use the bathroom and take a shower every day. But socially, like, we are all a bunch of weirdos.
Mm-hmm.
What if someone would have,
Yes.
like told me like, you can't be a weirdo? Like,
Mm-hmm.
then I wouldn't be sitting talking about like, I am the Avalanche because I was
Yeah,
the weirdo.
you're right. Exactly.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love that. And I think that's a big deal too, is like,
Yeah.
we don't need to suppress every single stim. And
Yeah.
from what I can tell, that's like a big part of ABA, which is nonsense to me, because it's like clapping hands. Great. I love clapping my hands. Okay. When I'm happy, if I'm really like laughing, I'm going to clap my hands. I really regulate my system really well when I rock. I was always kind of told not to do that because it's weird. Now I do it for whatever reason I need to do it. Like, I could be nervous, I could be happy, I could be like angry. Rocking helps me. So even if it's not what the normal person does, who cares as long as it's helping me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. With you. You come to
Yeah.
our, you're like sensory parent house. Like, we got rocks everywhere, sensory swing. Henry loves to rock. He's got huge sensory needs. You will walk in, my husband will be launching him 8 feet in the air onto the couch. And it's like, this is what he likes. Why wouldn't we do that? Like,
Yeah.
why would we sit and push cars back and forth? Like, that's bullshit. Why would I make him do that? So
Exactly.
there's a lot of discourse online.
It's like a battlefield out there, I swear. And that's why, like, I would love to be able to see our communities work together. And like I said, I think the biggest component is the aspie supremacy part of it. And the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I shouldn't be doing that, or like, I understand and it clicks, you know? And like, everybody just needs to work together. But as an autistic mom, if you could get support from autistic adults, what would you like? Like, what would you like to hear? What would you like to get from us if you could?
I would like, that's such a big question.
Yeah.
I would like to know how to support my son growing up. There is no one tell me, like, my non-autistic son cannot tell me like, you need to support Henry. And I think we do our best, like we do all and we do all the sensory stuff and we let him do him, but what is it? Because his social and emotional needs are different than mine. And I love to hear more about that, and then just like, is it okay that I'm going on a podcast and talking about my son with autism? Is he going to dirty laundry,
Like I said, like, for me, like, personally, like, when I get offended by any parent that goes online is when, like I said, if they're like filming a meltdown to be like, look how horrible it is to have this child as my child,
No.
That's like, yeah, for me and a lot of people, that's like a huge one, is stuff like that. Whereas if you're going on and talking about like specifics of like what you're dealing with. And obviously your case is even more different than just your average autistic case.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. You're not
Yeah.
like coming on here being like, woe is me, like my life is horrible.
It doesn't feel like that.
You
It doesn't
know?
that we're so lucky to have them. I think about how having Henry has changed the way I parent Vincent. And
Yeah.
we are, inclusion has become such a bigger part of like our parenting style, and kindness. When we send him to school in the morning, we say, what are the three most important parts of the day? And he says, use my listening ears, be kind, try my best. That came from Henry. Like, be kind. We have to be kind to everyone. We have no idea, so it's such a conflicting feeling, because if I could choose for my son not to have this rare genetic mutation, would I? Of course I would.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But am I so fucking happy and proud that he is mine and that I get to be his mother and that he is in the world? Of course I am. So it's like this conflicting feeling, but it's just our life. It's not sad, like we're not
Yeah.
like, God, our son's autistic,
Yeah.
like we are a weird couple of people anyway. So
I can say,
100%.
at least from what you have mentioned and talked about here, you guys are doing a fantastic job. And like anything that I would suggest so far, it sounds like you're doing.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I mean, in going through what you guys are in with the genetic testing and just like being a parent, if someone's on the outside, what advice, I guess, do you have to those people that maybe know someone that's getting whatever diagnosis or any health thing with their child and they're just trying to get by? What advice do you have for people, just whether it is family, friends, neighbors, whatever, to help with parents struggling mental health? Because I mean that has to be so taxing, because although I've worked in the childcare field, I give them back at like 6. It's
Yeah.
like, here you go. All right, I'm going home. I'm gonna go do whatever I want to do. And I can shut it off. As a parent, there is none of that. What advice, I guess, so if someone notices, hey, you know what, maybe they're going through a lot. What can we do to help?
Yeah. I mean, in our case, one of the best things that happens in our life is when someone treats Henry like he belongs. So we had a birthday party for my older son, and it's at Chuck E. Cheese, and Cole and I are just like chasing Henry,
Mm.
his birthday, and we're just kind of like, hey, buddy. And another mom stepped in and she grabbed Henry and started swinging him around. That's what I need. That is what I need. I don't know what every mom needs. I need people to treat Henry like he belongs, exactly the same way that Vincent belongs. Um, and then when people just let me talk, like,
Mm.
just let me talk about it. It's not uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable that my child is autistic, then that is your problem, because
Mhm.
I'm comfortable. I want to talk about him. I want to talk about Henry. I want to talk about SCN2A. I want to talk about it because it has been lonely. And I'm getting to the place where like I finally am like, okay, like we know what's going on. I can talk about it. I want to. And then, depending on the circumstances, drop dinner off. Offer to babysit. We have not had a babysitter in over a year besides my sister.
Oh,
Um, there's just these things like, just be a good friend. What would you want someone to do for you? Be a good friend. Like,
Mhm.
so
yeah, it's all about stepping up, because I think that's so
Yeah.
important. Like when anyone's dealing with anything, like I learned with what we've dealt with is don't ask, just do. Like you said, like drop off that dinner.
Mhm.
Don't, hey, do you want me to? No, no, no. Here, like I'm coming over. Here's the dinner. Or I'm coming over. Let me do this. Like I've learned that so much and I've tried to apply that. And I completely agree with that. It's so important to do that.
yeah.
It is. So, I mean, and even talking about that, I guess, like, what do you do maybe though? So, if there's another parent out there too, what do you do when you are feeling lonely or really just isolated with everything going on? Like, what do you turn to? Obviously, maybe music, like you've said, but is there anything else that really helps you?
A big thing. The gym has probably been the biggest thing for me.
Mm.
There was a long time where I felt like I couldn't leave my house because my husband was just as overwhelmed as I was. And then Henry was still nursing. And, I became like a prisoner to our home for like the first year we were going through this. And about a year ago, I had got back into like lifting and working out, and taking that time for myself has been absolutely the most crucial thing, because I still deserve good things. I still deserve
Absolutely.
life outside of motherhood. I am more than a mother and a wife.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't feel that way. I got Botox, I was like, shit, I'm going to get Botox. I did it for myself, like I needed it. I needed to feel better. Therapy,
Mhm.
therapy is like, I cannot always tell my husband how I'm feeling, because he is feeling the same way. He is going through the same. So for me to just unload my shit on him constantly is not fair. There has to be someone else. And for there to be someone else who's got like an outside perspective, because my sister, she still has, dogs in this race. Like, it's her nephew.
Mhm.
So just, talking to someone with an outside perspective, keeping relationships going with my friends. It is so easy for that to be the first thing to fall off. And that's one of those things other people can do, because sometimes it's hard for me to be the one to reach out, because it's like, hey, I have to bring my kids and blah, 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 so, um, but more than anything, man, the gym and the music and the gym go together like so hand in hand. And I could be the saddest I've ever been, and I will use that in my workout. And I could be the maddest I've ever been, and I will use that in my workout. And the music I'm listening to like totally reflects it. And just, sometimes it's like just getting in the car, leaving my house and going there.
Oh, 100%. Like, even me, I was telling Justine yesterday when we were recording and talking, and I was saying the main thing I know people don't talk, or maybe they just overlook it, is working out.
Mhm.
That's what I've implemented, and lifting the weights again, and the music, and using that on any day has done wonders for my mental health. And I think it's just such an underrated thing. And I know everybody, maybe on TikTok or whatever, is saying it, and people are like, oh, they're just trying to sell you something. No, like, it legitimately, like, has lifted me up. So I can't imagine for you in your situation, like you said, just getting in the car and like knowing you're gonna do that
Yeah.
for you and feel better.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, limitations, like like, is working out going to cure severe
no,
depression?
no,
No. But
no.
like, taking this time as a parent,
Mhm.
or in your case, like when he had his accident, like as a caregiver, like
Yeah.
you are a person. You're like,
Mhm.
you're
Yes.
an entire
Yeah.
being. And like, I cannot pour from an empty cup. And that's kind of like where it's gotten with my husband and I. Like, we have to do some things outside of our house. You are not just a father. I am not just a mother.
Yeah.
And so Sarah, so
Yeah. Oh, I
I
love that you
stress
said
that with
that.
every parent, like any parent I've ever worked with. I'm like, you need to have date nights. You need
Mhm.
to get out. Like, yes, you're a parent, but like at the same time, you still need to have hobbies. You still need to be able to have time for you, because you cannot take care of others in any capacity, whether you're a caretaker or, you're a parent or you're both. You need to be able to have something that's entirely yours, because you are more than a mother and more than a father, and you need to have these outlets as well. And I think a lot of people forget that when they're parents, in any capacity. Like, you still need to have something that is just yours and more than just your parenthood.
absolutely, dude.
Uh, uh,
Absolutely.
100%. Even me, and even not being a parent, like even you saying that about
Mhm.
caregiver, like I had
Yes,
to
because it
remember,
still
like,
counts. Yeah.
I'm Lisa, because when we were going
Yeah.
through that, it was all him. And even like having this podcast has been that. It's been, this is for me. Okay, I'm gonna go record, I'm gonna go do this. All right, edit, whatever. You do you, and having that. And I think, oh, you just said so many amazing things. And I am like so excited to
Mhm.
have this. And I know, again, you have your other little one. So I appreciate you taking the time for us. And I think like
It was
this,
so fun and so nice to like finally actually meet you.
I know, I was telling Justine, I was like, it's so cool when anyone reaches out to me on Instagram and they're like, "I wanna come on." I'm like, "Yes," because, like, I've seen everyone's pictures, I like your posts, we talk, like, in DMs or whatever, but, like, it's different, and I'm so happy, like, that we made it happen.
Well, thank you so much. Like, having any sort of platform to talk about genetic testing is, I mean,
Yeah.
it's so crucially needed. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you both so incredibly much. And if anybody
Well,
wants to
thank
donate,
you.
you can donate to scn2a.org.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So great.
No, that's so good because that's important too to say that. So see, look
Yeah.
at Sarah's got
I
it
learned
going
a
on.
lot.
We didn't even have that part in there. So all right, guys, and that was our conversation with Sarah. We really enjoyed having her on. And it was so great to finally put a voice to her and meet her. That's always the coolest part is meeting so many people that I just feel like at the end of this, I'm like, even if we weren't like real life friends, like we're friends. Like we follow each other forever. And I absolutely loved everything she had to say in regards to mental health, especially men's mental health. So many good takeaways from this one. And as for Justine and I, we will be back next week with a really great episode with Newfound Glory. If you're a fan, if you're not a fan, if you're a super fan, I think you'll really enjoy this. We highlight the album Catalyst. I brought on my longtime friend of nearly almost 20 years to do it. And it was just such a great conversation. And I honestly wanted to put it out like immediately. But you will see that next week. And as always, we will see you guys every Tuesday. You know that. New episodes every Tuesday. You can follow us on anything on our Instagram at stereo.therapy, at stereo.therapy. All the links below for that. And we will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Listen to great music. And we'll see you next week. All right. Bye, guys.